The referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly too. Scottish Championship pass, they give us a show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to batch.
Here we go again. We're back. The Referee's a Podcast, episode 4 of season 2, I think already.
4 it is.
Can,
4 already.
If you can believe that. We're back. Cameron Smith.
We are indeed.
At your service. Jack Curry.
Jack
with
Curry.
me as always. Hello. How are you doing?
Very, very well, Cam. How's things going with yourself?
Good. Obviously, halfway through the work week now. If no one is aware, we do record these on a Wednesday for publishing on a Thursday. So halfway through the week, getting closer to the weekend. As I mentioned just off camera there, I am a little bit under the weather today, a little bit tonsillitis. So if I'm a wee bit off today, then that's why, and I'll blame everything on that. What about you, Jack? How are you?
I'm grand, Cam. I'm grand. Obviously, disappointing start to the season for Thistle, but I think we can all just put that behind us. Kind of try and move on pretty quickly. But no, I'm good, Cam. As you said, it's Wednesday. Halfway through the working week, I've got my holiday coming up.
Yeah, buddy.
Which is in sight, listeners. I've got a bit of time off coming up from work, so I'm looking forward to that wee trip away. So it's gonna be all good, Cam. It's gonna be all good. But I'm just buzzing that Championship League football's back.
That's it.
It's absolutely fantastic and kicked off on the Friday night, didn't it? Did you watch the game?
I did.
On the telly?
Yes, I had it on. Not giving it my full undivided attention, but it was there, and it was playing games on my screen here in front of me, and game on the right there. So it was keeping tuned in with it, and I think you'll probably agree with me that maybe it wasn't the Ayr United that we were expecting to see.
Well, it's exactly because it was so strange. Like, they started so well.
Yeah.
Like that goal under Jamie Murphy, and you thought, when you look at the team, Ayr are flying, and they did start the game really well in general, and they were playing some nice stuff. They were knocking the ball about. They were on the front foot, and they just never really seemed to get out. Move on to the second, third, and fourth gear, and really take control of the game and cement themselves on it. And we spoke about Cam at the start of the episodes for this season. It's no doubt Ayr United have improved their team this season. I think on the whole they are stronger. We've already posed the question though whether Scott Brown's learning from his mistakes, and you almost feel as though Ayr United being in the lead for so long against Arbroath and conceding so late on is just perhaps him still not learning from previous mistakes.
Definitely. Now, obviously, you said there it was almost like Ayr United couldn't find the third or fourth gear. I mean, they barely found the opposition's third of the pitch. 3 shots total for Ayr United, 1 on target being the goal. Arbroath, 11 shots, 4 of them on target. Now, it's a fairly even game in terms of the possession, but certainly in that second half, I think you'll agree with me, Arbroath were all over Ayr. Really taking the game to them, and obviously they were rewarded right at the death with that goal. But I mean, you look at the stats there and you think, that's the Ayr United were the newly promoted team, not the team that are building on what ended up being a fairly productive season for them last year. So certainly not the Ayr United Arbroath game I was expecting to kick off the championship season.
No, I think everybody was expecting Ayr United to come away from there with a win, but we posed the question to you, Cam, I think on week 2 when Ayr United scudded Arbroath 4-0 at home in the cup, and I think I said at the time, is it going to be the case where Arbroath might, basically write off their away form this season, but at home they're going to be a different beast?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that could be the case with the fact that they did get this draw against Arbroath, or do you think it's just too early in the season to kind of judge anything?
I think that statement is going to hold true for everything that we talk about today, maybe everything that we talk about next week, potentially the week after that as well. It is obviously early in the season, first game down, but I mean, if there's anything to be taken from that, it is maybe Arbroath are not going to be the pushover that we were expecting them to be, one way or the other. You know, you can certainly say that Ayr United didn't play particularly well on the night, but what you do have to say is Arbroath did actually play pretty well against a team that we've both pipped as, you know, going to be pushing towards the top end of the table again this year. So it was certainly a surprise, but watching the way Arbroath piled on the pressure in the second half, it was, you know, they certainly deserved their goal. And you know, to see the big man Todorov come on and, you know, do what he was put on the pitch to do, score a big header, you know, it was, you know, perfectly playing to their strengths late in the game, you know, do what you can to get a goal, and they did it. So fair play, a really, really well earned point for Arbroath in that one.
You made a really good point there yourself, Cam, about Todorov's impact. You know, what on the pitch, 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and getting the equaliser. Talk about, you know, making an impact.
Oh, exactly. I mean, he's that sort of player, isn't he? You know, it's that one where you see him come on late in the game, it just does put that little bit of fear into you, and I'm not looking forward to when he comes up against us later on in the year, although he's never been maybe as prolific as we sort of almost give him credit for. I think we talk about Todorov as a sort of like godly figure, but I couldn't actually tell you whether he's got a particularly good record.
He doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
I don't think he scored at all last season. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he did score last season.
Now, don't get me wrong, he might have had injuries and stuff, because I don't remember him playing all that often, if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, nice to see him in the Arbroath colours and putting the goal there to sink the potential for 3 points for Ayr United, after especially the fact they've stolen our previous players in Dom Thomas and Holt. Is it Holt they stick?
Yeah,
Holt,
Holt's there, Bannigan as well.
Bannigan as well, yeah, and your favourite goalkeeper?
Bannigan. No, Mitchell was the goalkeeper.
Yeah, your favourite one, they took him.
Took him too, but Bannigan's a weird one because Bannigan must have picked up an injury, because he featured in a couple of their League Cup games and then hasn't been seen since.
Right.
So not really sure what's going on with him, but yeah, Mitchell seems like he's got that. Well, he's got the number 1 physical jersey, but he seems like his first choice.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen last season Scott Brown. You know, Liam Russell was in. Josh Clark was in, Robbie Much was in at times. I'm sure there's somebody else that I'm forgetting as well.
Yeah.
You know, so if you know he maybe is looking
Harry
at he's going to
Stone.
find with a proper Harry Stone. Yeah, he was another one of their goalkeepers. So it's going to be interesting this season. You know, and you're seeing there already, Cam. You know, the effect of that cooperation loan that they've got with Celtic.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Jude Connor starting, Kyle Urey coming on at half time. So it's interesting. You know, there is quite a lot of change here United this season. You know, still the core of a lot of the players that were still there, but for me at least, looking in from the outside, it feels as if there's been quite a lot going on here this summer.
Yeah, definitely, lots of change. Now you can maybe put that as the main reason behind, you know, any potential slow start they have, anything like that, because it does obviously take a while when there's lots of changes. We talk about this often, and I think it's because the Championship is a league that's prone to mass changes, isn't it? You know, you can have almost an entirely new team every year sort of thing, so sometimes it takes a wee bit of time. So we'll give Ayr the benefit of the doubt in this instance, but I don't think it will be very long in the season before we start questioning Scott Brown if results continue in that way. Yeah,
definitely. And I think one man that's probably already going to be questioned quite quickly is going to be Don Cowie, Cam. What do you make of Ross County chucking away a 2-goal lead in the first game of the season away to Airdrie?
It's a rough one. You know, don't get me wrong, obviously this is just based on the highlights. You know, Ross County go 2 up from, you know, essentially the same goal, corner in to the big man Axel Wright, I believe, and he's just headed it in both instances, straight onto his head, unmarked, boom, goal, sorted. 2-0 up, should be secure in the game at that point if you're not able to get another goal in. Now obviously both of them from set pieces, so it wasn't like they were playing an incredible game of football and scoring freely from open play. You know, they've taken advantage of, you know, potentially more physicality in their team compared to Airdrie. But at 2-0 up, it is only just after the second half started that they've gone 2-0 up, but you need to hold on to that. You can't be throwing away points from 2-0 up in the second half. Now, fair play to Ewan Henderson. First goal was a lovely run. What a ball. I can't even remember. I think it was McMaster put the ball in. What a fantastic ball. Ewan Henderson runs on and just somehow manages to slot it. Super tight angle through the legs of the keeper. 1-0. Nice goal. But second one, oh my God, free kick just on the edge of the box. And I'll tell you this, Jack, it was the first instance of a corner being given for a goalkeeper holding the ball for 8 seconds. St Johnstone keeper, held the ball too long. Referee gave a corner. The corner comes in. The Airdrie win a free kick and scored directly from the free kick. So not only was the rule finally used there, but it also indirectly went straight into their own net. So, you know, they've given it away and quite ridiculously. So in the end, there'll certainly be questions asked, I would be thinking, especially after their League Cup performance and going into that. That's not the start they were looking for.
No, and I was going to say as well, referee Lloyd Wilson, don't recognise the name. So fair play to him for coming in and making such a bold decision.
Yeah.
You know, I think you've summarised things there absolutely beautifully there, Cam. I think, as you said, Akil Wright putting County 2 up, Ewan Henderson getting that double to get Airdrie, you know, the point, and which is really, really good point for Airdrie in the first game of the season. You know, obviously we saw them win first game of last season before it went all so wrong. Mm-hmm. They've stuck with McCabe. You know, it's a good start to this season, getting a point at home to the league leaders. And as you said, the real question marks now go back on Don County, they go back on Ross County, and they go back on all the signings and the players that they've made, you know. And there is speculation, we've already spoken about it week in, week out, about guys like Ronan Hale, you know, being linked with, you know, League One clubs down in England almost on a weekly basis, you know. And that's a huge jump from the Scottish Championship when you really, really think about it. So it's one of those ones where there's huge amounts of pressure on County, maybe not necessarily from, you know, massive travel and support that would have came down or anything like that, but you know, the players must know that they're massive favourites to go and win this league. And there'll be pressure coming from that, because, you know, a lot of these guys won't want to be, you know, in the best world of the world, relocating to somewhere like Dingwall unless it's going to produce them a league title.
Exactly, yeah. They're obviously, it's always the pressure on the team coming down, isn't it? Obviously in this instance we've got 2 down, so it's maybe slightly different. But Ross County are certainly in this league expecting to win it. And I think the players and the fans and the manager will be looking at their performances so far in the League Cup games and that first league game of the season and thinking, are we in for a bit of a tough season here? You know? You mentioned Ronan Hale, and we spoke of him, you know, a couple of times already so far this season of the podcast. But again, just from the highlights, so I can't make a full explanation, but he did not look very in the game. You know, he didn't seem to do particularly much. As I mentioned, they didn't manage to really seemingly do an awful lot from open play, with the goals coming from a set piece. So, you know, they've certainly got to find a different level, I think, from what they've found so far.
Yeah, because maybe his head's not in it, you know, but you look through that slide of the squad, it should be more than good enough, you know, to be scratching somebody of Airdrie, especially when you're 2 goals up and both goals have came from set pieces. So massively disappointing for Ross County there, but I suppose you've got to give Airdrie a lot of credit, because not many sides are going to bounce back from 2 goals down like that, and you know, they've certainly done so, especially at home, and you know, they're going to find the positives from that.
It's huge. Considering the season Airdrie had last year, they'll be pleased with, you know, it's only just a point in the first game of the season, but it's a big point coming from 2-0 back against the team just relegated from the top division, so they'll be pleased with that for sure, in the manner that they came back, and just the strength of the point against Ross County anyway. So fair play, point on the board. It's not the 3 points that they started with last year, but maybe, all things considered, on last year, maybe that's for the best. Yeah,
we did spoke about it last week, didn't we? When we kind of almost kind of joke said, you know, if they win this game, then we know they're going to lose their next 20. But it just was such a bizarre one for Airdrie last year. You know, it really, really was, to see them win and have such a positive League Cup campaign before it, and go on the run they did. But somehow they've survived, and you know, we don't get to talk about the current ups and downs, and pretty much all downs just now, of Hamilton Accies, and to be honest, what their fans are going through just now, which is just terrible. And
Yeah, based
You're
on
seeing
everything that's happening, I don't think we'll be talking about Hamilton for
No.
a while. And I think the only reason we'll be talking about Hamilton is if Queen's Park get relegated due to financial issues in the next coming years. Outside of that, I don't see Hamilton making a comeback. So fair play to Airdrie. They've stayed up, and they look to be doing their business again. However, another set of teams that are continuing on as they done many times last year. Martin against Dunfermline. Come on. 0-0. Brilliant.
You called this, didn't you?
Oh, I might have done. You never know. I'll just have to wait
I'm
and see.
We'll all have to wait and see. I'm sure you called that, and when I think back at the time, I think, what else was it going to be? This is why. This is what I think I gave Dunfermline too much credit already.
Yeah.
When it came to my league prediction, it just sounds dire, doesn't it?
No, I've not even. I didn't. This is the one game that I didn't bother looking at the highlights for, because I thought, what's the point,
Yeah.
So let's have a wee look here. Dunfermline looked to have been the better team based on possession, shots, lots of shots, forced. My goodness, the Martin keeper had 9 saves.
That's a lot of saves.
9 saves, 9 shots on target, 9 saves.
Maybe Dunfermline did go for it a bit more.
Yes, that certainly seems to be the case here. The one thing, though, that I want to obviously talk about, and I don't know whether he was in for this game kicking off, but obviously Morton have made a signing.
Michael Halloran.
Brophy.
Oh, they signed Brophy, yes.
Got Brophy.
They signed both of them,
So,
seen that.
yes, he was on the substitutes bench, and he did come on in the 61st minute. Because we'd obviously mentioned, we did our predictions already. We said, Martin not doing too much special, and maybe they're going to be a downward trajectory this year rather than they're sort of middle of the line. And then all of a sudden they just started signing players, and you're like, right, well, why are you doing this to us? But obviously these players have been involved already, and still it was at a 0-0. So
I mean, it was an interesting one with Brophy, because we all know Brophy's the player in Brophy.
Yeah.
But you look at his last 2 or 3 seasons, he's hardly scored a goal.
He needs to come back to the black and white, and he needs to rekindle the form that started him on his journey.
Needs a wee return to Queen's Park.
That's it. So many players have done it. Aidan Connolly's back, Michael Ruth's back. Previously, Jack Thompson was back, and loads of players have been brought back to Queen's Park.
Oh, it was interesting. Just quickly talking about Queen's Park. I was having a look in my work today, because Carlisle United kick off their season on Saturday,
right?
And I was having a look at their team, because they played Woking in the first game, and I seen that Jack Turner signed for them.
Oh, has he now?
I know, and I know. I actually was going to say that to you, and I just kind of thought it's popped into my mind there just while talking. And I was like,
Will Tizard will probably be with him as well.
I'll need to go and check in a couple of weeks to see if he joined them.
I'm sure. So they both obviously came from Brighton.
Not Southampton.
Southampton. It was Southampton. They both came from Southampton together, and I'm sure they did leave to the same club as well. So you'll have to check in on that and come back to me. But always nice to see old Queen's Park players doing well, whether it's with us or not. Unless you're also Dom Thomas this year.
Yeah, which we all cannot wait to see how the Queen's Park was this season, and the level of abuse that Tom Thomas gets from Cam specifically.
Yeah, probably. Nah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Until he celebrates in our face, then he'll have the benefit of the doubt from me.
Then it's all going south.
Yeah,
but we'll move on from that.
Yeah.
But we'll move on from that to Queen's Park.
Yeah.
So moving on from Queen's Park to Queen's Park, what each Cam sum it up?
I think Wraith Rovers, my observation is they need to have an entire week's training session on shooting. 12 shots, 2 on target. They missed some absolute beautifully worked, bits of play. They probably could have scored had they just had, a header on target. Or it was just on the other side of the post than it was. They could have scored 3 or 4 goals. They were the better team overall, but as I say, not able to get their shots on target. Out of 12 shots, Callum Ferry made 1 save. Both goals in the game coming from penalties. Our one was quite a light penalty, but definitely a penalty. The more times I watch the penalty that was given against us, the more I know 100% that firstly, it didn't hit his hand or his arm at all. Secondly, even if it did hit his arm or his hand, it shouldn't have been a penalty because he was in the air, it was behind him and headed into him, but it hit his midriff. You see it in slow motion. There's a good view of it. No penalty. We got scummed out of an extra 2 points in that game.
Controversy already is what you're saying?
Honestly, when I first watched it back in the highlights, I was like, is it? That doesn't look... But I watched it again, and just an hour or so ago in preparation here, and I was like, nah, it doesn't hit his hand. You'll need to go and watch it after this, but I think you'll agree with me. We got absolutely scummed for that penalty, and therefore the whole 3 points.
It's a really good point though for you, isn't it? I mean, in the grand scheme, I think if you said before the game, would you take a draw away to Wraith Rovers? Absolutely, you'd have bit your hand off for it. If you're a Queen's fan,
it'll definitely do.
Yeah, so I think this is a good platform to build on. Obviously, Josh Fowler didn't get his goal. I was almost surprised that he wasn't on penalty shoots.
Yeah, so I don't know. Obviously Michael Ruth is also a striker. Josh Fowler was playing, and yes, he didn't get his goal, but he had 2 good opportunities. One was blocked by the defender. It was just sort of generally unlucky. Second one, he just sort of, the ball runs past him and he's not even looking at the goal or the keeper. He's just looking fully at the ball, and he hits a shot, and obviously it just goes directly to where the keeper's sort of standing. It's one of those ones where if he'd maybe just taken a look up before, then he maybe could have placed the ball a little bit better and could have got his goal. That's maybe something that he needs to work on generally in this game. He's in the right position and he's got good instinct, but maybe is less acting in the moment, and maybe a bit more direction and idea behind it might work out nicely. Maybe I'm talking out my arse, but it just
it's difficult though, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. He's under pressure. There's players around him. He's got to get the shot off. It's all going so quickly. Fair play. You're not going to score every goal. But just in that instance, I thought maybe if he'd taken just a glance up, seen where the keeper was, he maybe could have done slightly better with it. But outside of that, we didn't have a fantastically attacking game. 3 shots on target. We were fairly efficient when we got the opportunity, but we didn't get the opportunity that much. So it's fair to say in an away game against Wraith Rovers, you're maybe not going to have the most of the ball, you're maybe not going to have the most of the chances, but like you say, we've managed to come out with it with the point, fairly well worked, and yeah, we'll take that point all day. It's always nice to start the season not losing, so even though we were scummed out of 3 points, it is what it is. It's football.
I would say it's definitely where Wraith Rovers fans are definitely going home disappointed. From that game, where they're going to feel as though it's 2 points dropped. So for yourself to come away feeling like it's 2 point dropped as well is only a compliment, I suppose, to your team there on the day, Cam. Do you feel as though we're looking at more solid Queen's Park this season than last year?
Like I say, if Wraith Rovers had been more clinical and just getting shots on target, it would have been a different story. There was 3 or 4 in particular that were, centimetres just past the post sort of thing. So, yeah, they needed to do better. So I don't think we looked particularly solid enough, obviously, and done the business generally. But there were certainly moments that, had things been different, you would have been asking a lot of questions of the defence.
Definitely. And talking about asking questions to the defence, 5-1, Cam. If I still get beaten. Yeah. I said this to you beforehand, admit it to you listeners, I've still not managed to bring myself to watch the highlights, which is terrible of me.
I try. I don't usually watch the highlights of the games we lose either.
No, not when it's 5-1 like that. So, I'm not going to be able to sit here and, talk about, the goals in specific detail and all that jazz. I think the thing for me is, probably for myself, putting Thistle second in the league, bit of a reality check.
Yeah.
as to maybe how good St Johnstone are.
Well, yeah.
Is probably the biggest thing for me. I think any side can have an off day, and you can't judge what's going to happen for the rest of the season on one day. But I think when you see a team like St Johnstone put 5 past Thistle,
Yeah.
in the way that they did against us, that's a statement from them.
I mean, it started so positively for you as well. Getting the goal first.
Just seemed to annoy them though, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a nice goal as well. Ball across to Patrick Redding. Nicely puts the ball in, but it's within a minute and a half or so. Ball was inside the Partick Thistle net from a Jamie Gullen goal, who's been doing the work so far for the Saints, but it did just then start the downfall. A man who's not been very kind to Partick Thistle, not been very kind again, Josh McPake. I don't know if you'll recall, but the season that he was on loan at Queen's Park, he only scored 3 goals total. 2 of them were in the 4-1 victory at Firhill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
I didn't know that at all.
2 of the 3 goals that he scored were against you. And now he's obviously done a hat-trick, and 2 of them were those sort of classic Josh McPake goals that he done against you that day as well, where he's on the left-hand side, cuts in, right foot, far corner. It was 2 really good goals, 1 scrappy, and then that last one from Stevie Mallon, free kick, outside the box, just top corner. Keeper couldn't have possibly done anything about it, but it was just one of those free kicks that you got to sit back and go, wow, impressive.
Stevie Mallon's one of those players that I think technically he's the best player in the league. When you see, if it wasn't for injuries for me, Stevie Mallon, he could have played at a much higher level than what he did. I remember, I can't remember what team it was, but I remember he moved to Turkey from was it Hibs or whoever he was when when he was quite a bit younger, and it was quite a good move for him. I'd imagine it would have been kind of lucrative as well, going to the Turkish Super League. But I think just injuries, one thing and another. I think it was in England for a while as well, and it just never quite. He just never really quite hit the heights of what he could have done. But I think as you touched upon there, scoring another wonder goal. That's what he's known for, isn't it? And I think if St Johnstone can keep somebody like Stevie Mallon fit, then they've got a chance of getting a goal out anywhere in any game.
That's it.
So he could be a bit of a game changer for me, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both guilty of overlooking St Johnstone a little bit. Out of the 2 teams coming down, we're like, yeah, Ross County are going to smash it, and St Johnstone will do their best to sort of compete. But after that performance, they certainly do have some players who can change a game. Now, I'm still sceptical on Josh McPake. I know he scored a hat-trick there. And while I know that he is a good player, knowing him from the time with Queen's Park, I can't imagine him doing that particularly often. But
that was the thing though when he moved to St Johnstone last season in the Premiership.
Yeah,
he was at Stirling Albion with I can't really say anything. He scored a hat-trick against us, right? But he was at Stirling with a pretty mediocre record. Yeah, and then got the move to St Johnstone in the Prem, and you're like, oh my god,
it was an awfully strange move. And
really
if this is it paying off now, then fair play. They've called it, but I don't know, and maybe that's just really hoping. There's been a lot of Queen's Park players. Ewan Henderson got 2 goals for Airdrie. McPake's got 3 goals for St Johnstone. I'm really hoping this isn't the year of Queen's Park players coming back to bite us. Dom Thomas at Ayr, and yeah, this is it's not looking good. But I will say, in terms of the result, it's really not looking good for you. The only team to lose the weekend.
Yeah, it's a strange opening weekend.
It really is, yeah.
Excuse me. 8 teams all on a point, and 1 team on nil point, obviously being Thistle, and then St Johnstone up there on 3. Yeah, I don't feel as though you see that often at all. 4 draws in the opening weekend, but sums up how competitive this league is. How close it's going to be throughout the whole season. And I mean, you look at it there, St Johnstone at the top just came down from the Premier League, but give it a couple of weeks, Cam, and things could be totally transformed in the table. So I think the thing from a Thistle perspective, looking at it, is at this stage it's not to get too downbeat, and I think that's the the thing I've seen from everybody is there was no negative really
Yeah.
from that. I think that what I seen was just outclassed, outplayed on the day, and sometimes you just got to hold your hand up and say the better team, that played better on the days won. So I think for Thistle, it's a kind of case of won 4 games. We've got our last 16 League Cup spot. We've beaten Ross County away. We've got that marker down there, but there's a bit of reality check there. Going to McDermott Park. Sitting there. With -4 goal difference on the board now as well.
Mm-hmm.
Puts a lot on the Morton game on Saturday at Firhill. We'll go into that in a wee bit, but you kind of think now. You don't want it to be too long for Thistle before you get that first League One under the belt. Because you are going to be stuck down there at the bottom of yourself with everybody else, getting off the mark. So you want it to be sooner rather than later. But I've got, absolutely no doubt in my mind that'll just be around the corner.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly going to be the case. You'll have 3 points on the board before long. No question there. I think there's also always something to be said about playing a team that wasn't in the league the year before, early on in the season. They've got a lot of players, new players or not. It's an entire team of players that you've presumably not played against. You don't necessarily know how they play specifically, who to close down properly and stuff. It's early on. There's lots of questions to be asked of these teams that we're not quite as familiar with. So I think it's an unfortunate one that you've managed to draw one of the teams coming down away in the first game of the season, and you've certainly paid the price for it. But yeah, like you say, it's not going to be long before you've won some games, and this whole league table may look very different.
I think as well, it's so difficult at our level, for at least in my mind, I think it is. But to go from beating Ross County with such an impressive manner and performance the week before, to then follow that up with, to probably have to play even better. To beat St Johnstone away, it's that those 2 games, when you looked at it with the end of the League Cup into the first game of the season, for me, you were almost never going to come away with those games with 2 wins, because it's tough, to do that back to back. So I think getting that first game in the league at Firhill, is going to be welcome, and I know I'm certainly absolutely buzzing to be going to Firhill. So, and I'm sure you are, Cam, first home game of the season, but whether you're just buzzing to go to the City Stadium is a different question. But it's going to be exciting, Cam. It's home games for the 2 of us, first in the league. So, there's potential there for 3 points, certainly. When you look at the teams
I like the City Stadium in terms of you can go out at half time and have a vape. You
can. But you can just stand at your seat. But anyway.
I know, but there's not enough people at the City Stadium in order to do that. And the steward sort of sits right in front of me, essentially, and it's like looking sort of directly into my eyes at times, So no, that's not always an opportunity. But yeah, you can go out at half time and have a wee puff on the vape, and there's lots of issues with the City Stadium that are all well documented, but it's nice not being in Hampden, I think, is more the sentiment. Hampden's not conducive to a good atmosphere when you've only got 1,002 people in. So yes, we're going to be hemorrhaging money in terms of match tickets and that sort of stuff, but it will be. It's a really good surface. It's better atmosphere generally. So with it going into the season there, I'm hoping that we at least, at the very minimum, start to sell out all the seats every game.
I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. I think no offence to Arbroath. Obviously, Queen's Park have gave Arbroath 160 tickets for this game. Yeah, it's probably not going to cause too many to miss. But I'm just so interested. I don't know who your first big home game's against. Whether it is Thistle or Wraith or Dunfermline or whoever.
Let's have a wee look.
But that first big home game, where you're going to be expecting, if it was at Hampden or if it was just, however many fans can get in, 1,000, upwards of fans.
It's you. 6th of September, Park Thistle. Yeah.
Well, I'm just I'm going to be so interested, because obviously, I'm 99% chance not going to be able to get a ticket myself. And I'm just so interested to see what's going to happen, and to see
you'll be watching from
whether
the
it's
hill.
just going to be watching on the hill.
Yeah.
So we're going to certainly have real good talking points, I think, is throughout the season and the ground at Queen's Park. So kind of watch this space, I suppose, listeners.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, Cam, talking about the games this weekend, I think it's absolutely fantastic that we've got Ross County v St Johnstone on the Friday night in the telly.
100%.
I mean, especially given the fact that Ross County, lost to Thistle, they've just thrown away the win against Airdrie. St Johnstone, 4 wins out of 4 in the cup, 5-1 at home against Thistle.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really excited for this game on Friday night.
Yeah, it's weird to look at that and go, championship game on the Friday night, Ross County against St Johnstone. That's not a championship game, but here we are in 2025. We've got Ross County and St Johnstone Friday night game. Like you say, to get that as second game of the season, that's pretty great. Especially as well if I go back to what I was saying there about not really knowing what these teams and players on these teams are like, being that you've not played against them before. Really interested in that one's on TV the night before, so every team can sit and they can watch it and they can analyse it and they can look at how the players play and watch it in its entirety, that you don't necessarily get to do without actually going and scouting the game directly in person. So I think it'll be good for all the other teams to be able to get a look at how the two teams play and how they play against each other and how all the players combine together. I think it will give everyone a wee bit of an insight as to how you might be able to better play against them. But yeah, it'll be a good one. I'll certainly be watching that on Friday night.
Yeah, really looking forward to I'm actually going to make a conscious effort to be up in time to watch the full thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be certainly good, and it's difficult now to see who you would fancy because Ross County aren't firing in any way.
Yeah.
It's difficult to tip St Johnstone, so I'm eagerly awaiting the prediction segment coming up in a wee bit, Cam, to see what way you're going to go on that game because my mind's swithering just now.
It's a weird one to look at. Yeah,
it really is.
I honestly have no idea what I'm going to predict in that. Listeners and watchers at home, we don't obviously do any form of preparation for this, especially even when it comes to the predictions. At least on my side of things, it's always just what am I feeling in that exact moment. What does the tinkle say? It says this.
Yeah, that's exactly how I play this game as well.
So we'll get to that shortly in the tingle time. Before that, we've got Saturday games to discuss there as well. Ayr United back in action at home against Wraith Rovers. Again, two teams that haven't performed the way that you'd have expected them to necessarily in their first game there. Neither of them getting the 3 points. Ayr United obviously a little bit more surprisingly so. What are your thoughts on their return to Somerset this week?
I think this is a really interesting game. It almost could have been on the Friday night, if it wasn't Ross County v St Johnstone, and I think it would have had me really excited to watch it as well. I think Ayr United, almost in my opinion, need to come out and make a bit of a statement here. Yeah. Show that they do mean business, and we've seen St Johnstone show that they're ready. They're not messing about, and they're up for it. And I think if Ayr United are gonna want to push on from being a team that get into the playoffs but do nothing to serious promotion contenders, they need to beat a team like Wraith Rovers at home.
Yeah.
For me, Cam, though, on the flip side of that, Wraith Rovers have dropped 2 points at home against Queen's Park in their first season.
Sure.
They can't go much longer without getting their first one on the board. Because they finished the season well under Barry Robson last year, still finished 5th, still missed out in the playoffs. It's not good enough for Wraith Rovers and where they want to be just now. So if Wraith Rovers want to get where they want to be, they need to be competing in games like this.
Yeah.
So really interesting from both perspectives. And again, it's one where if it ended up a draw, it's not really going to suit anybody. It's not going to be a pleasing result for anybody. So I'd expect both teams to be going fully out for the win here.
Definitely, I think that's going to be, like you say, had it not been the County St Johnstone game on the Friday night, that would have been a right good contender because it will be a cracker of a game, and I think I agree with basically everything that you said there. Both teams are really looking to prove a point. I think potentially with Ayr having the home advantage, and the amount that they've put into the team and the change over the summer, I think they'll be maybe just slightly more hungry in order to do that, but we'll certainly see how that goes Saturday. Next up, we've got two teams that we consider to be some of the weakest in the league last year. Dunfermline at home to Airdrie. Obviously Dunfermline not starting particularly well in a fairly dull game, but Airdrie obviously coming back from behind to get the point in their game. So what are we thinking for the Dunfermline Airdrie game?
This is going to sum up Dunfermline's season. Yeah, I hate to say it after, but this is the type of game for me where last season Dunfermline would have lost this game 1-0 at home.
Yeah.
You know, they would have been terrible. They would have had basically no shots on goal. And, you know, the other team would have basically played garbage and won at 1-0, you know, and that would have been it. I think this is where we have to, if Dunfermline are going to make progress this season, they have to be beating teams like Airdrie at home.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what you think, Cam, but I think if we don't see Dunfermline win, then, you know, you can just write them having probably the same campaign as they did last year.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think, we need to see stuff from them. Yes, they've got Neil Lennon in full time and, you know, made some signings here and there and stuff, but they just don't give off that sort of, you know, air of confidence. Or, like, I don't ever really look at Dunfermline and their game coming up and think, right, Dunfermline should win that game, you know. It's weird because, you know, I don't know. Yeah, they seem to obviously still have the same struggles that they did last year in terms of, you know, not scoring goals, but, you know, taking shots and, you know, really converting it. So we'll see what they can do against Airdrie. Obviously, Airdrie will be buoyed by their point that they pulled back, and Dunfermline will obviously be looking to set the record straight and score a goal. I think it's an interesting one, if it's maybe not going to be the most entertaining game of the weekend.
We spoke about it though, you know, Dunfermline less than a goal a game last season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've started in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, less than a goal a game. So things have to change for me and very, very quickly at Dunfermline.
Yeah.
You know, because they're a big club. You know, and I know the fans there do demand a lot, and you know, it wouldn't have been easy for them, you know, last season, you know, seeing Ray finish above them, being the rivals Falkirk winning the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so for me, if you're a Dunfermline fan, you want to see a lot more positivity under somebody like Neil Lennon. You know, we were on last week, the week before. Mm-hmm. He is a good manager. He's got that experience. It's time for him to show that he's still got it. You know, and the only way to do that is by putting wins and goals on the board.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose he's out to really show that he's not just a good manager when he has the best team in the league at his disposal, you know. He's got to really put a wee bit of work in here to show that he can put his stamp on a team and turn them into champions. So, yeah, he'll be certainly looking for a response from his players. Someone else will be looking for a response from their players is your man Wilson, coming up at home, like you say, big home tie against Morton. What are your thoughts on it, the Partick Thistle perspective?
I'm absolutely buzzing, Cam. Absolutely buzzing. This will be my first time getting to this season, having missed out on the League Cup games. So I'm absolutely buzzing for that. Can't lie. Thistle Morton games are always seem to be quite decent from a Thistle perspective. I think, although we played Morton at home on the first game of last season and didn't win. But you know, memories, you know, back at the James Craigan night, you know, other big wins against Morton that I can remember as well. So I always feel as though when Thistle play Morton at home, I go in pretty confident. And I don't think the 5-1 defeat from St Johnstone changed that in any way. You know, I think you know exactly what you're going to get from physicality, work hard, but you know, it's a big pitch at Firhill and it's totally different to how a game's played at Capello. And I just feel as though if we get our game right on the day, then it should hopefully be a positive afternoon. As you said though, Cam, you know, things need to change quickly from that 5-1 defeat and, you know, the learning curve for some players. So it'll be interesting to see what Wilson does. You know, how many changes does he make? You know, what tweaks to the system does he make? You know, how's he going to adapt? So it'll be interesting. What's your take on it from an outsider's perspective looking in?
I mean, I think it's, you know, Partick Thistle Firhill form in general's you know, fairly strong as a general rule. You know, you've got to imagine most times at Firhill you're at least going to get the draw. and probably have a fairly good performance. So I think I'm expecting some form of bounce back, whether it be a resounding turnaround and a big win. I don't know. Obviously Morton, typically very grindy, a battle whether home or away, obviously more so at the Capello, but they are always a tough, physical, strong team. So we'll see if they manage to carry that over and give you a hard time. I think it's going to be a tough game for them, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. You guys have had a bit of a knock to the mentality there. It's just whether Wilson can get them backfiring again. I'm sure he has it in his locker to do so, though.
Yeah, and ex-Queen's Park youth loanee from Celtic, Ben McPherson's joined Thistle
He has.
for the rest of the season. Somebody that we spoke about through the week there. You're saying he was a good player when you had him on loan a couple of seasons back. Got a bit of an injury and pretty much missed the whole of last season. He'll come in and provide a bit of competition. I think he said in his interview he can play in both full-back positions, so he'll be providing competition for Cammy Logan on the right and Paddy Redding on the left, and he's an interesting one to come in. And I think as well, we spoke about earlier on the cooperation mode Ayr have with Celtic, but that doesn't stop teams in the league still getting loan players from Celtic. So
because you've got Josh Clark in as well, don't you, from Celtic?
Clark as well, but we don't have a cooperation deal in place, so it's a very strange one. How teams have these deals in place, but what do they really mean if if players are loan anyway? I don't know. It's a bit of a gimmick for me at this stage, but we'll see if there's benefits to anything that Ayr and Wraith and etc. have done down the line, because like we've seen Wraith put it to their fans through the week that
yes, they did.
Do you want to have a cooperation with Rangers? And you can shout me down here, was it not something like 95% said yes or something?
I think it might be slightly more than that. I had it in my head that it was 97, but resoundingly they voted for the cooperation agreement with the Rangers.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, how it does work out in the long term. I think these teams and fans are kind of thinking, well, nothing to lose, so I suppose you don't have anything to lose, but what are you really gaining when you could just get the players on loan anyway?
Yeah.
So, bit of a strange one for me, but anyway, we'll
see how it all pans out.
Yeah, it all pans out, and maybe pick that up at a later point.
Yeah.
One more game, Cam, to talk about. It's been a really, really interesting and an exciting episode so far. Your side, Queen's Park, taking on the Red Lipties at the City Stadium. What are you expecting?
I'm going to continue to maintain the positivity so far. It's early in the season. We got a good point away to Wraith. Still in the honeymoon period of all the new signings and players that have re-signed and stuff like that. So I'm going to continue with the good thoughts there, and I think we're going to have a nice game. I think we have a good chance of getting 3 points. I know Arbroath fought hard against Ayr United, but I don't know if it's again just the prospect of the fact that they've just come up again, and even when they were in this division in the last year, they were poor that year as well. So I'm maybe it's just muscle memory of playing against Arbroath. I'm thinking, okay, cool, an opportunity to get 3 points here. I hope that's the case. I hope we're able to put our marker down on the game early, potentially get maybe a wee goal from Josh Fowler on the board, and just take it from there. I think it's always so crucial in the championship to get that first goal, especially if you can get it in, say, the first 15 minutes of the game. So I'd be setting up the team to really put it to Arbroath early and try and just get in ahead of them and get that goal early, get it first, and then just build on that. So I'll be hoping that the attacking threats that we've brought in this year will be able to do the business there on Saturday.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Cam. I think looking outside in at Queen's Park, Arbroath, I think again, I've said a bit, Queen's Park being at home again, this is a game where they target 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, if we're going to have a good season, if we're not going to be down there fighting these teams, we need to beat them. So I think it's a big game for both. Again, I think it's one that Arbroath are looking at as probably Queen's Park as one of the teams that they'd look to try and drag into a relegation fight. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how it plays out. But, if I was you going into it, I would be looking for the win, put it that way.
100%. Yeah, it's got to be, early in the season. It's got to be one of the must-win games for us. Looking at the fixtures when they came out, we'd be looking at this as the second game of the season against newly promoted Arbroath. 3 points on the board, fingers crossed. So yeah, that's certainly the target. That's what I'll be hoping for, and fingers crossed what I'll be walking away from the City Stadium with at the end of that game.
Right, and my target this season, Cam, is to not only have Thistle finish ahead of you and obviously go up this season, but to beat you to the prediction trophy, title, whatever we're calling it, because what did I miss out on by 2 points last year or something like that?
2 points was the final score, yeah.
It was absolutely disgusting. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've got a feeling I'm already behind going in this week one.
Well, seeing as we're obviously talking about it, we'll go on to the predictions now. I've got my trusty iPad here in front of me. I've got the scores, so I'll now run through them with you and all the listeners and watchers at home. If you've managed to stay to this part, well done. And here we go, we're the finale. The prediction portion, game week 1. Arbroath against Ayr on the Friday night. We both went for a 3-1 Ayr United victory. Obviously we were both wrong, 0 points. Airdrie against Ross County, again we both went for a Ross County victory. You went 2-0, I went 3-1, no points. The game that you pointed out earlier on, Morton against Dunfermline, you, Jack Curry, took a 1-1 draw, so 2 points. I did in fact take a 0-0 draw, 5 points on the board.
I remembered at the time, yeah, I knew you did.
However, that is the only points I gained total.
Oh!
In the Wraith against Queen's Park game, I took a victory, 2-0 for Queen's Park. You took 2 each, so 2 points.
Okay.
Then the last game, St Johnstone against Partick Thistle. Do you recall what you thought it might be?
No, I honestly can't remember, right? But thinking back, I probably would have said a draw. I don't think I would have predicted a Thistle win, but I probably didn't take us to get beat.
You took a 0-0 draw.
Oh yeah, so it did 5-1. God, I think 0-0.
Couldn't have been any further. And I also took a draw, 1 each. So I got 5 points, you got 4 points. So yes, I am in the lead, but just by the 1. And not only is a lot of the teams carried on from where they finished last season, but we have carried on the way that we finished last season. I got 1 correct score, not a single other correct result. You got 2 correct results. Yeah.
That did happen a lot last year, where you did get more correct scores than me, and I got more correct results, but you just edged it, man, over the edge.
Yeah, just got it in the end.
And I can't remember, right, we're going to need to make a thing, because obviously rules out where whoever started the podcast has the thing, and you now start every week, listeners, for reasons that are technical. So, who done the first week? I'm sure any listener that remembers screaming just now.
I think I went first last week.
Okay, so I'm going to go first this week.
I think I went
first.
We'll
remember that going forward. So, it's going to be Ross County St Johnstone, Cam. And this is really difficult to call just now, because Ross County aren't playing great. St Johnstone are playing pretty well, so you could make a case for it to go either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 1 each.
1 each. That's in. I'm going to go slightly different. Ross County have already proved that going to Dingwall is irrelevant. Now I'm going to go 2-1 St Johnstone.
Oof. Big call. I was swithering on 2-1 County.
Right.
Was what I was swithering on. So interesting that all 3 different ways were considered there. So interesting. And that takes us down to Somerset Park, Cam, and can only go for an Ayr United victory here. I think it's for them. But they are quite fine in judging on that league form. I'll say 2-1 Ayr.
2-1 Ayr. I'm thinking in the same vein, but I'm going to give Ayr slightly more credit and give them an additional goal. 3-1 Ayr.
3-1 Ayr. And then what feels like the difficult one.
Yeah.
Well, because in some ways, do you just play it safe and go 0-0 every week with Dunfermline?
Yeah.
Or do I try and give them some credit? I'm going to give them some credit. I'm going to go 2-0 Dunfermline.
2-0 Dunfermline, wow. I'm going to give them credit in the respect that I think they're going to score a goal, but 1 goal apiece.
One apiece. I was going to really laugh if you took that in a 1 defeat. That would have been disrespectful. Thistle against Morton.
Yes.
As I said, Cam, I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm going to go for a Thistle win.
Yeah.
It's not quite, eclipsing the defeat that came last week, but I'm going to go 3-1 Thistle. And say that we're going to make up for it with that, sending everybody home nice and happy.
I was thinking similarly in the 3-1. I may switch it up just very slightly, just so we've got that element of one of us being able to get it right and one of us not. I'm going to go 2-1 Partick Thistle.
2-1. Pretty close. I can definitely see that happening as well.
3-1 was what I thought, but like I say, I just switch it up very slightly. See if I can maybe take the points.
Keep me on my toes where I'm sweating for that third goal on Saturday. In the Queen's Park against Arbroath, Cam, I'm going to go for a Queen's Park victory here. I'm going to stick by my theory that Arbroath are going to do well at home and they're going to do mince away.
Okay.
So I'm going to go for a Queen's Park win. And I'm going to go 2-0 as well.
2-0 again. That's exactly where I was thinking. But seeing as you've went that, I'm going to give the boys a wee bit extra. I'm going to go 3-0.
3-0.
Oh yes.
Scoreline of the weekend if that comes in.
We'll take that.
So big result at the end, but why don't you give us a wee round up as to what we both said?
Certainly will. So first game up, Ross County St Johnstone Friday night. You've went for a 1-1 draw. I've taken St Johnstone to win that one 2-1 away. Ayr against Wraith. We've both taken an Ayr United victory. I've taken 3-1. You've taken 2-1. Dunfermline against Airdrie. I've went for another Dunfermline draw, 1 each this time. You've taken Dunfermline to win that one, 2-0. Thistle against Morton, we've both taken Partick Thistle in this one. You've given your boys a 3-1 advantage. I'm just giving them a 2-1 advantage. And then Queen's Park against Arbroath. Again, we're both taking the home side Queen's Park for the victory, just differing in the scoreline. I've taken 3-0, you've taken 2-0.
2-0, and Cam, we're getting close to wrapping up another episode. And listeners, we don't do this very often, Cam, but this just came into my mind. If you're watching this on the new platform on YouTube and you're not subscribed, do subscribe because it is only going to help us grow, isn't it, Cam?
Yes.
It's going to help more people watch it. If you do enjoy the videos, just give them a like. If you fancy it and you feel as though you're the biggest fan of the podcast, give it a share as well. But, subscribe to us, like us, and just help the podcast grow because we want to get it out there to as many people as we can, Cam.
Yeah, I suppose we should probably be saying things like that more often. We've certainly let that lax in the entire first year of doing the podcast. But yeah, you're right. We should be saying things more like that. So everyone, thank you very much for staying tuned for another episode. Season 2, episode 4, Referees a Podcast, finished. Thank you all for listening. Have a nice night.
See you next week, guys. Catch you later on.